Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm Paige. I'm an alcoholic, and so glad to be here with you guys. What a privilege it is to speak on steps 8 and 9, and I love that as we dove in, it talks about this theme, this thread that we are going to see and have seen and will continue to see throughout this book, and that is the idea of faith without works is dead. And what that means is that faith, which is to say belief, so belief in the power of God, belief in the power of Alcoholics Anonymous, belief in the power of the 12 steps, belief in the spiritual awakening without works. And what is works? Works is action. Without the tangible action of all 12 steps is dead. What does that mean? I will drink again. So to break it down, faith without works is dead. What that means, at least in my experience, is that if I have belief in the steps, belief in my sponsor, belief in the power of a power greater than myself, but I do not do all this work as a way of life, like my life depends on it because it does, I will drink again. And we are thrust into that in steps 8 and 9. And the reason we're kicking it off with that sort of a message is because who wants to do 8 and 9? Not me. I won't do it. No, thank you. Amends? I'd rather not. Hard pass on that for me. Like, no thanks, right? I mean, not you guys. You guys are all willing and raring to go with amends, can't relate. But over here, I'm like, I don't want to do it. I'm afraid, right? Step 9 is where I have the greatest amount of fear. Not you guys, but me. 5 and 9. And that's, by the way, that's why we sit on 4, because I'm afraid of 9, or I'm afraid of 5. That's why I try to sit on 8, because I'm afraid of 9. And why am I afraid? I'm afraid that I'm going to be rejected. I'm afraid that I'm going to show up in this position of contrition, this position of humility, and you're going to reject me. Rejection and abandonment seem to be, after taking a lot of drunks just like me and doing my own, a lot of inventory, what I've found is rejection and abandonment seem to be our two greatest fears. And so I'm afraid. I'm afraid of steps 9. And I want to sit on 8. But one of the things I noticed is it's steps 8 and 9. The directions for 8 are intertwined with the directions for step 9. And I wasn't going to tell the story, but I'm telling the story. Off we go. One of my favorite things to do is to support people. I love people. I love being a cheerleader for people. I love it. And I had a friend of mine, and she was chairing a meeting for her first ever time. And she's like, can you come and support me? And I'm like, yeah, girl, I'm there. And I show up, and she's like, Paige, can you read something? We're on step 8. Can you read something on step 8? And so I read the first 2 paragraphs that we read here today. And there was a guy, and it's never anyone's meeting. It's always like God's meeting, the fellowship's meeting, but I always like his meeting. You know what I'm saying? And he goes in to share first, and he's like, there is F all about step 8 in the big book. It's all in the 12 and 12, and if you're blah, 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 blah. And like the spiritual giant that I am before you today, I got a resentment. I hate this guy. This guy sucks. So what I did was I did my own inventory, and I got to see that I've attached my sense of value and worth to the need to be right, and you guys need to agree with me, and blah, blah, blah. But I then had a look at this part of the book in a deeper way. And it is what allowed me to see that it is 8 and 9 intertwined. The 8th step is all about a list, and where the vast majority of the list will come from is my 4th step. And I'll share with you guys, not a secret, because although if I say it's a secret, it sounds exciting. So, ooh, she's spilling the tea, the hot gossip. Ooh, a secret. It's not a secret. But if I am thorough in my resentments list, and if I am thorough in that 4th column where I find where I have been at fault, and if I am thorough when I have a look at my sex inventory, diving into where I was wrong, where I was selfish, where I was dishonest, where I was self-seeking, where I was inconsiderate, where I aroused jealousy, suspicion, and bitterness, that work that I've done in step 4 can naturally flow right into my amends. Much of my list is going to come from step 4, but also the vast majority of what I share in the amends itself will come from the work that I've done if I have been thorough, if I have been detailed. I can take not all of, but most of my fourth column and plug it right into the amends. And so a lot of the work is done. But when we talk about 8 and 9 together, so 8 is the list, but it is also about building willingness. It's given us a number of ways in which we can build willingness. And one of them that we saw was in regards to criminal offenses, which I'm as shocked as you are. An alcoholic committing a criminal offense? Who would have thought? You know, it's almost as shocking and appalling as alcoholics owing money or having domestic troubles. Crazy. I can't relate. No, I absolutely can. On all of them. But it's on 79 where it says, reminding ourselves that we've decided to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience. And that's the second time we see that. You see, the third step is a commitment that we have made, that I have made, to work these 12 steps as a way of life, like my life depends on it, because it does. So I remind myself that I made this commitment to go to any lengths. It says, we ask. And any time in this book it says we ask, that is a prayer. We ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. We may lose our position or reputation or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be. We must not shrink at anything. And so that is a prayer. And I can say, God, higher power, creator, spirit of the universe, I ask that I be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. Help me to be willing to not shrink at anything. So that is one of the ways in which I can build willingness. I can pray and I can ask for the willingness. Another way in which I can build the willingness is, it was talking about on 77. It's when it says we take the bit in our teeth and go to it. Believe it or not, one of the best ways to build willingness is just go do it. Just go do it. Rip off the Band-Aid, send out the approaches. And I'll share with you, I don't have too much time to dive into, I do a lot of fun in step 8 with my sponsees. That's subjective. They get to decide whether they had fun or not, but I do. I do a lot of fun things, there is a lot of fun and there is a lot of joy. But what I do when I work with sponsees is, after we've done our 5, and they do their quiet hour 6 and 7. The next day we're meeting and we're diving into this work. Now, a lot of times the convention is you get your list and you only worry about the list and then you do your amends. And I don't think that's wrong, but I haven't found that to be the most effective. Bear with me, and you don't have to be my sponsor or sponsee if you're like, that is a stupid suggestion and I hate you. Completely reasonable. But what I do is when I sit with my sponsees, we don't even start with the list. I tell them pick 10 or I tell them pick 5, depending on how nervous they are. By the way, if they're nervous, it's more 10 than it is 5. But I tell them to pick 10 amends or pick 5 amends. Because we know what's on our heart. And what we do in that moment is we send the approach messages and we write out what we're going to say in the amends. And we do that together. So one of the best ways that I can build willingness is by just going and doing, ripping off the Band-Aid, diving in, getting it done, and then we'll look at the 8-step list. I want to get our feet wet. I want to dive in. Let's have this experience. Now, if you're like, that's wrong, you're right. You're right. I'm wrong. I smell bad, but y'all can't smell me, and that's okay. But I found that really effective. If you're like me, you know that fear. Man, there is nothing. I can tell that those that are in person, you got good coffee there. I can tell it's that coffee. You put a spoon in it, standing straight up. I got you. I can pick up that vibe, right? And so that meat and coffee, if you're feeling a little backed up, I have a feeling that'll get things moving for you. But if you're also feeling backed up, nothing will get it moving for you as good as going and making those amends. Like, ooh, the pre-amends digestive issues. Woo! Not a whole lot of fun. But it's just in the diving in. And the worst thing that I could ever do is delay the process. The worst thing that I could ever do is try to postpone. I got to dive in. And here's the thing, if I'm sending a whole lot of approaches, my experience is, guess what? It's 2025. People aren't going to get back to us right away. They're just not. But then I'm right in the middle of it. And I don't have time to be afraid. I don't have time to be scared. I'm doing it. And so one of the things that I want to talk about is what is an amend? Because, when I got here, and a lot of times what I'll hear is like, oh man, I can't make an amends. I've said I'm sorry a million times. Well, despite being a Canadian and the stereotype of saying, oh, sorry there, eh? That an amends is not an apology. The word amend, what it means is to repair, to restore, to correct, to free from fault, to improve. So that's what we're doing. And also, if you're like, well, why do I have to do it? Because, man, the most human thing is to be like, I don't want to dredge up the past. I want to let sleeping dogs lie. I don't want to, it seems so much. Well, this is why we make amends. It's on 77. Our real purpose, why we are making amends, is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. You see, in that third step, I made a decision that I am fired from the management position of my life. I got my spiritual pink slip. I am fired. There's nobody worse at managing my life than me. And that is true, because the best I could do was drunk and suicidal. I was actively doing everything I could to end my life. I ought not be in charge. In step 2, we got that idea that there could be another manager. And in step 3, I signed that employment contract. I'm going out and I'm going to work for this power. You see, nothing less than a spiritual experience, and I am doomed to drink again. And nothing less than a spiritual experience that I grow, that I deepen for the rest of my life, and I will drink again. So I am making these amends so that I can fit myself to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. Now, it would have been last week or yesterday or whenever. You meet every day, but this is a weekly Big Book thing. Got it. Got the schedule. I got there. But last week, you would have spoken about steps 6 and 7. And 6 and 7 is where I begin to awaken to the reality of my inherent goodness. That at the core of who I am is good and loved and valued. But this line also points to that there is a loving power, a loving God that wants to use me, that will use me, and I get to be of service, but I can't do that if I'm hiding behind mailboxes and trying to avoid the people that I owe amends to. I can't feel that sense of connectedness when I come to a meeting like this and I hear a weirdo like me nattering on about amends, and I get the twisties and the resisties. You guys know it. It's like you got that amend that you don't want to make, and it's like, oh, every meeting you go to is like some jerk talking about amends, and Tummy goes, what? And it's like, nope, I don't want to do it, right? But that's why we do this. We get to be of use to others. And if you've not had a lot of experience with amends, if you're new here today, man, I want you to know. And actually, we're going to pop, by we, I mean me, I'm all over the place. Spoilers. On page 80. It's talking about the gentleman who'd stolen the money and discredited his business rival. But what it said is he saw that he had to place the outcome in God's hands, or he would soon start drinking again and all would be lost anyhow. One of the things that I know to be true, and I don't know this to be true before I make the amends, but the more amends of mine that I make and the more that I help others make their amends, the more I know that the outcome is none of my business. How the amends go is absolutely none of my business. Now, spoilers, it says in 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. What is unexpected is that it goes well. And I know that from experience. But even in those times where maybe it doesn't go well, maybe they don't. By the way, if they're usually not going to chew me out, if they agree to meet, or if they agree to a time to make the amends, they're not going to do that. They're going to just block me or ghost or chew me out when I send the approach message. And so, if I take the results is upper management. I was absolutely and utterly fired from upper management. And so how the amends go is not my business, it's God's business. And one of the things that I know to be true is how often a 9th step call or a 9th step amends will turn into a 12-step call. And if I get myself out of the way, I get to be of use to this power and to the people about me. And man, it is more than just, I don't gotta drink today. It is a freedom beyond anything I could have ever imagined. And it leads me again and again to where I am called to be. And I'll wrap up with this. How do we make the amends? Well, the first and foremost is I've got to send an approach. I got to reach out to them. And I can say it a number of ways. One is to say that I'm a member of a 12-step fellowship, and part of the process asks that I reflect upon my life, and in so doing, I saw that I caused you harm. I would like to, if you would allow me the opportunity to make it right. You don't have to tell them you're in a 12-step fellowship, but I send out that approach. And then if I get the opportunity, what I do is I share what I did, being specific, focusing on where applicable, being specific where applicable, and focusing on my defects of character. When I did not show up to your wedding, that was selfish, that was dishonest, that was inconsiderate. And I always say the harm and tie it back to the defects of character. And then I like to give them the opportunity to share with me any other way in which I caused them harm or how my actions made them feel. And what I do is I listen, because that is where I can see the truth about who I am. And then I ask, what can I do to make it right? And then I go and do that. And I'll let you know, spoilers, in 9 cases out of 10, it's just keep doing what you're doing. This was more than enough. But what that means is that this continued way of life is a commitment to the amends that I make. So I'm not just doing it for me. I'm not just doing it for others. I'm doing it to restore the damage done in the past. And that is at least a minute over my time. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to share.